very much for appearing before the committee today. Greatly appreciate your testimony and your time. And lots of questions to ask in 5 minutes, but we're not going to get to them all. But Madam Secretary, I was interested on page 4 of your testimony that if I could just repeat a little bit of it, you said, without question, the most powerful OCS experience for me was the 2005 hurricane season. Over 4,000 offshore platforms were operating in the Gulf of Mexico when Hurricanes Rita and Katrina pummeled the area. Safety and spill prevention measures were put to a severe test. And then going on, you said, a number of the mostly older platforms were destroyed by the storm's fury. Amazingly, despite the strength of the hurricane, the amount of oil spilled from the wells and platforms was quite small. The shutoff valves located at the sea floor operated as intended. They prevented oil from leaking into the ocean even when the platforms were severely damaged. The spill prevention techniques upon which the industry and government relied on passed the hurricane test. And this is kind of where you have to look in that giant crystal ball out there. When we had the testimony recently from, from BP, from Mr. Hayward, and listening to the testimony, a lot of us were looking and thinking, was this a lot of human error? Because if, again, if we're talking about 4,000 rigs that were out there at the time and that they were put to that supreme test, what happened here? If you could just maybe hypothesize about that.
Obviously, we really need to have the answers from the scientific inquiry before any of us can say exactly what happened. But, based on the reports that I've read, it certainly looks like there were a number of decisions made in those last few days and hours that need to be called into question and may show us that there were violations of the standards that should have been applied. Everybody involved with the offshore industry has always understood that this is a very challenging environment, and it is one where there have to be very high performance standards. And the performance that we saw in the hurricanes met those standards and really gave me a great deal of confidence that we had systems in place that worked and could work well.
Let me just follow up then. As you, and for both of you, as your experience as secretary at the department, as you said just now that maybe something was occurring just prior to this accident, how often would someone from MMS or the Department of Interior be seeing what was going on this rig, or any changes that would have occurred that maybe something here on the federal side so could say, wait a minute, you shouldn't be doing that?
It's my understanding there would be fairly regular communication. You have to have a helicopter to fly out to the rig to actually have an inspector there. And the frequency of that depends on a lot of different factors, the weather, the timing of, being able to do monthly visits and so forth. But there was very frequent communication by telephone and so forth between people in the MMS and the offshore platforms, as I understand it.
Thank you. Thank you. Secretary Kempthorne, first I want to respect you not wanting to second guess the folks that have come after you, but several of us were down at the coast earlier in July of this month. And again, we talked to a lot of those local officials, and they're just confounded as to at the lack of getting back and forth from the local side back up through the chain of command on the federal side. And I also noticed in your testimony that as you read it, that you were talking about the governors down there not always second guessing the folks down there. Now I know you just said you don't want to second guess, but from what you've seen, could the local officials on the ground actually have been right on some of these decisions that they had seen since they were there, but they were being, again, overruled by the federal government?
I'd be surprised if they're not correct on a number of the issues that they've raised because they live there. I have a background in local government, state government, and federal. the perspective I've been able to pull upon from local and state, it is pragmatic. It is on the ground. It is, you must deal with things hour by hour. And so I really do think they are a tremendous resource of ideas, resources that they can bring to bear with sheer manpower and a variety of innovations. And you want to create that atmosphere so that they feel that they are part of a partnership in solving this problem.
Well, I thank you for that, and I thank you again for both being before us, and I yield back. Thank you.
Mr. Green for questions, please.